Okay, and we are recording. See participants coming in. Thank you for joining us this evening. Give it just a couple minutes for more people to come in. Okay, great. It looks like we've got some participants coming in. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we'll just get started. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for So You Want to Be Creative, a virtual career panel for Scholastic Awards alumni. So I'm Shannon Costello, she, her, hers, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's conversation. I work at the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers, which is the nonprofit presenter of the Scholastic Awards. I'm the manager of individual giving and special events at the Alliance. And one of my absolute favorite parts of the job is meeting and working with our fantastic alumni. As you know, the awards will hit their centennial in 2023, marking 100 years of supporting creative teams like yourselves. So tonight we bring together 4 awards alumni to discuss how they made their journey from arts-loving teens to leaders in their respective fields. We have 1 hour for tonight's discussion, and I encourage our audience members to submit questions in the Q&A feature below. And we're going to save a few minutes at the end to answer those. So I'm going to pass it over to our panelists to do their own self-introductions. Matt, do you want to get us started?
Awesome. Yeah, my name is Matt Wyatt, he, him, and I'm so thrilled to be here tonight. I'm trying to remember everything that I wanted to say about myself. So I'm the co-founder of the Rochester Museum of Fine Arts in Rochester, New Hampshire, and I am a 2004 alumni of Scholastic Art and Writing, 2004 or 2005. And it's been a while, but it was a really great experience for me. And I've been just loving art my whole life, and I'm happy to still be working in the arts. And I also work for the city of Rochester. I'm in my office now. And I work as the full-time as the public information and community engagement manager. So I wear a lot of different hats in the city. Let's see, what am I forgetting, Shannon?
I think that's great. Did you share educational history? Where did you go to?
Education.
Yeah.
Of course. The most important part. I studied at the New Hampshire Institute of Art while pursuing my BFA in Manchester, New Hampshire. I studied studio art and fine art photography. And I just recently completed a program with Cornell University. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, Jessica, we'll pass it off to you.
Hi guys, my name is Jessica Moon, she, her, and I would go by they. Absolutely love that as well. And I won an award in 1998 for photography. I went to NYU. I went to the Gallatin School of Individualized Study, which is a program at NYU where you design your own major, and allowed me to take classes at all of the colleges at NYU, including Tisch. I'm currently the director, I'm a director at Scholastic Publishers, so I run a department at the intersection of our creative operations, technology, and legal concerns. We work with diverse teams across our global children's publishing business to create a culture of compliance through diligence, empathy, and curiosity. Our team handles all the licensing for third-party intellectual property, so images, video, typography, a couple other things in there. And it's super fun. I mean, we make sure that artists get paid, and we really take things apart and put them back together in terms of the creative workflow. So I think I hit everything there for this intro. Nice.
Good.
I wish I could see everyone. It's much more fun to do this in person. So a big wave to everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Great. Sarah, how about you?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sarah Nerboso, she, her, hers. In terms of Scholastic, I won a few New York City regional awards, and then in 2000, I got the American Voices Award for a science fiction story I wrote. And then I went off to University of Chicago, where I majored in East Asian history, which became surprisingly relevant later on. But then I thought I was done for school forever. And then I went back and I got an MFA in film from Columbia. And currently I work as writing for animation in particular, I guess any TV, but particularly animation. And most recently, I was a staff writer for the animated prequel series, Gremlins: Secrets of the Mogwai, coming to HBO Max by the end of the year, hopefully, which takes place in 1920s China. So my East Asian history degree became helpful in that regard. So that's me.
That's great. And Lisa, let's finish with you.
Yeah, hello everyone. It's so great to be here. I'm Lisa Grove, she, her, and I am the old person on the panel, I think, because my Scholastic Art Award is from the 1980s. I don't even remember what year. But it, so long ago, but yet still so formative in, launching me in a career in arts museum leadership. And so I've had sort of, 20 more years of career of leading art museums. I've been in art museums in different cities in St. Louis. I most recently was the director and CEO of an art museum in Savannah, Georgia. And then a couple of years ago, picked up and moved across the country to cold Chicago, where I'm now currently the deputy director of the to be built new museum for President Obama, the presidential sort of museum that we're building there. And in that, I kind of oversee, it's building a brand new museum from a blank sheet of paper. So all of my, running of art museums comes in handy. But in particular, even though it's focused on presidential history, we're building a really strong arts program there. And so a lot of the work I'm doing is commissioning major works of art to be included in the Presidential Center and imagining sort of an ongoing arts program. So it's really interesting how no matter what you do, it somehow can kind of all come together. I guess my education background, I grew up in Kansas City and went off to college at Stanford, where I majored in American Studies with sort of a concentration in American art history, as well as other, American Studies related topics. And then I had the opportunity to go to England for graduate school, where I studied art history, did a master's in art history at the Courtauld Institute of Art in London, and then also got an MBA at Imperial College Business School in London. So it kind of shows, the right brain and left brain, it all kind of comes together, when I think about how my career kind of progressed. But anyway, delighted to be here with all of you tonight.
Great, thank you so much. And we have a couple people in the chat saying that they love your earrings, Lisa, which I agree with. Okay, so we're going to start off with our questions. And we're going to start off kind of thinking back to high school and, early 20s college. So I'm going to direct this first question to Matt and Sarah. Tell us a little bit more about who you were when you applied to the Scholastic Awards in high school. Did you have a strong perception of yourself as an artist prior to winning a Scholastic Award?
You could go ahead.
Okay. I had no idea who I was or what I was doing or anything back then. In fact, my teacher at the time, her name is Abra Andrews, which is a great friend of mine to this day. She told, I was a terrible student in school, so I'm a terrible influence here too. But she challenged me. She said, listen, we have this thing happening tomorrow and, it's due tomorrow. You have to have it. So I have it on my desk by 9 a.m. or whatever she said. And so I went home and I tinkered around a little bit and I brought it back and she entered it. So I really had nothing to do with the process in the beginning. And I was really astounded when I found out that I had won on the state level, let alone in New York or anything like that. I just couldn't believe it. So, but I had no clue what I was doing or anything. I didn't come out until I was 26 years old. So I talk about late bloomer. So when I was that age, I really had no idea what I was doing, who I was, or what I wanted to be, or anything. And art was the thing that kept me grounded and kept me in touch with who I knew I wanted to be. So through my art, I was able to express all these things that I wasn't able to say out loud. So that was about it though. In my 20s, I hardly remember. So I remember more about high school.
Yeah, for me, I was I was the type of kid who I was like nervous about all my extracurriculars because I'm like, oh, if I join a literary magazine, that means I have to work in publishing when I grow up, right? Or something. Like, it was like everything felt like this decision was going to affect the rest of my life. But I was on a literary magazine. I was on the science fiction. My school had a lot of magazines, science fiction magazine and a newspaper. And I was really excited when I saw there was a category that was science fiction, because it was like, that's what I was really into reading, and that's what like I wanted to be, was like Ursula Le Guin when I grew up. So it was really exciting to be like, there's a category for me in this competition. I think I entered other ones too. I don't know. I probably entered a bunch. I was like, go, go, go. Because it meant so much to get like recognition from somebody who wasn't somebody who knew me. Like, because there's no reason for them to be nice to me. So I guess I must be good at this. You know, it's like a huge thing. Because sometimes, you know, like my dad was like overly encouraging and my mom was like, I don't want to read your stuff because what if I don't like it? It was like on two ends of the spectrum there. So just to get outside people who weren't, you know, I can be like, oh, my teacher just likes me because I'm a nice girl, saying like, this is good. Objectively, we decided you are good at this thing, meant like the world.
Yeah, absolutely. We hear that all the time. Okay, so Lisa and Jessica, how did you approach the transition from high school to the wider world? You know, did you attend an undergraduate institution right away, or did you take some time off? And what did you study?
For it, Lisa.
Okay, I'll go. First of all, I want to just say what Sarah was saying. I mean, I think that sense of like confidence building of you know, having that external reward is so important, and it meant tremendous to me as well. And so, you know, I think for me, I went right to college, but I was really torn on whether to go to art school or to normal college, you know, as I you know, because I was really active and was able to participate in a lot of the Scholastic Arts Awards, you know, I had a pretty strong portfolio, and I had a great art teacher who was, you know, so I'd been accepted to a lot of art school programs. But I was torn because that felt like that was a core part of me, but it wasn't all of me. And I didn't know what to do. So I also applied, and, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I ended up going to Stanford, because I sort of, you know, there's no right path, but I sort of thought, well, I can always come back to art, is kind of how I justified it to myself. I can always kind of keep that going, but I felt like I had this one opportunity, this other. But it was funny because when I arrived, I sort of was thinking, well, who am I and what is my art role here? And actually, because I wasn't an art major, I wasn't allowed to take a whole lot of really significant art studio classes. They were, you know, mostly reserved for majors. So I took a few studio classes and things to keep it going a little bit while I was at Stanford, but I really kind of put that part of me a little bit to the side. You know, and again, it's interesting, at different points in my life, I've come back to it and picked up, you know, I still kind of, you know, try to pick things up, and I find it's at different points in my life. So it's that constant, you know, it's always with you. But I think part of what, you know, everybody's talked about is that, you know, you have this, the art or the writing, it's a part of who you are. You never can get away from that. And even if your path maybe takes you on what might seem like a deviation, it often brings you back, you know, like, you know, something will kind of bring you back. So I guess that's kind of what I think about when I went, and you know, so I went right to college and took that path, but art has always been sort of a constant.
Great.
Well, I guess adding to this sort of look back in time, you know, when I think back to high school, it was such a hard time. I mean, I've always been gay and I always knew I was gay, but I kind of was trying to find my place in the world. And certainly my mom wasn't pleased about things. And she would always ask me, you know, Jessie, are you gay? And I would say, you have nothing to worry about, even though I was, you know, president of the Gay Straight Alliance and that kind of thing. So I never lied to her, but what that led me to do is actually graduate high school early. I did extra credit type independent studies. And I had a number of teachers at the school who were mentoring or were definitely mentors to me, or just like sponsors helping me get through some of the challenges and get my my certificate early. And as a result of graduating early, my parents gave me a Eurail pass to travel around Europe by myself for 3 months, which was just like life changing. And I remember during that time, it was 1998, and we didn't have cell phones then. I just had like a calling card, that I could go into a payphone and dial my parents. And I would periodically call to get updates about my college applications. And I applied to all art schools with the exception of NYU and at Gallatin. And the art school acceptance letters were coming in. I was like, I don't know if that's really what I want to do. And I remember on that trip realizing that I wanted to go to New York and I needed to, go to NYU. And they, and certainly winning my award, which I got some money for college, it was like absolutely a vote of confidence, to just keep doing what I'm doing. And at that, when I kind of recollect back to that time, I wasn't really thinking beyond the moment. I was very in the moment with, the strong intention of just, I can't stop making pictures. I think that when I think back at the challenges at that time, it really, and even to this day, it's like facing those challenges with humility and resilience and enough curiosity to create that traction to just keep moving forward, and really enjoying the journey. So I think that I did go directly to NYU, and being in New York City really didn't feel like a college campus at all. So it was very much like thrust into the world. And in hindsight, I mean, I'm sure we all can look with hindsight for different experiences, but I am so appreciative of the experience that I had at NYU, and certainly also in high school with, just regards to the mentors that I had and people who were really propelling me.
That's great. All right, so I'll open this question up to anybody who wants to answer. But if you have one, what was a major obstacle that you faced in this period of your life? And what was the most challenging part of being a young person trying to imagine your path in a world? And how did you solve for that? It's a big question, I know.
Yeah. Period in your life, you mean like high school into college, or?
Yeah, that's kind of where we're thinking.
Yeah, because for me, it was like right after college, it's like, okay,
yeah,
you need money.
Yes.
That's the big thing. It's like you have creative ambitions, but you're like, I would like to not live with my parents all the time. I would like to buy things. So for me, that was, just figuring out how to get a day job. What is it, and asking around people, like how, like literally I would just ask people slightly older than me, like, how do you make money? Like, how are you doing things? And ended up in like weird temp jobs and all that. But so yeah, and then the fear of like, is your day job going to become your life job, and like holding on to your creative pursuits. That to me was like a big story of my early 20s.
Yeah.
I'll go. Jessica, I feel like I could talk to you forever about some of these experiences, so thank you for saying that. I wish that somebody had asked me if I was gay growing up, because I spent my adolescence waiting for somebody to ask me so I could finally say it. I couldn't make the words myself. So it's good that your mom was so in tune with that, because my mom, I mean, she, if she'd buy me Dolly Parton records and think nothing of it, and never question anything. So, and I don't think I could have been more obvious about it. But I'm so glad to hear that you said that. But yeah, at that time, like I said before, I really didn't know who I was other than art. And I think I used that identity to kind of make myself feel like I fit in more, being good at drawing and different things like that, always being first to be picked for any science project because we might have to draw something or something, so it always made me feel really good. And I think winning the award certainly made me take art a lot more seriously. I didn't realize, I think, from my upbringing, living in a working class town, I had never even been into an art gallery or anything like that. So I was really introduced to that world through Scholastic and traveling to New York and all that. I felt like a country mouse in the big city. It was a really great experience. And of course, being in Carnegie Hall, knowing full well all the legends that had performed there, the Beatles, Judy Garland, gay, all these great, you know, acts that have been there. It just made me feel so warm, and I took it very seriously for a long time. So, you know, it took Friends of Dorothy rise up. Thank you, Alex. I'm trying to read the chat at the same time, but yeah, but the awards meant so much to me. I still have it in my office to this day. It's right over there. You know, but like I said, I had no idea who I was other than art, but through that, it really inspired me to create things and build a community art museum, which eventually got me a job in marketing at a theater, which eventually landed me here at the city and working in City Hall. So, and it's all just because I sort of made things up because that was what I was interested in. So.
That's great. And Bailey's just asking, so you were a medalist when you received, you got one of the national medals, correct?
Me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me get it.
Yeah, show us, show and tell.
It's in a shadow box because of its age, you know, I don't want it to, but yeah, this is my gold medal from 2000s.
Cool.
And I still have it in my office today. It's, yes, very shiny. Thank you. It's important to keep those things, you know.
I was showing before, I still have the book where they published from my year of the,
I love that. I love that. All right, so let's move forward and talk about, you know, your career path. So Sarah and Lisa, tell us some of your early experiences in the working world. What kind of professional opportunities did you engage in, and how did you find them?
I feel like I've been I guess I'll go first. For me, post grad school, I moved to LA with like 2 suitcases, and just because I was told you have to be in LA to work in TV and nothing else. And I found, so my first 2 years in LA, I did something called script coverage, which is like agencies have pay nothing, almost nothing for people to do this all the time. And then I had like weird other part-time jobs. Like I did collections for a pickup artist company. Like I would call people, be like, you owe money to this pickup, like weird stuff. Like, and all those, even those weird gigs I got just from, like, even though I was applying to jobs, like almost everything was from somebody I knew. Like it is actually kind of insane how much it's just like, and it doesn't mean like it was like a fancy person I knew. It means like somebody I met at a party was like, oh, my company's looking for somebody to do something part-time. Because what I had to just do is tell everybody I was looking for work, which is really hard. And it sucks to be like, hi, I'm here in LA and I'm looking for work. Please help me find work. But those awkward encounters eventually led me to like somebody who I was able to send my script to. And that led me to somebody who worked at DreamWorks who had breakfast with me at 8 a.m. And I was like, I don't want to go over there at 8 a.m., but okay, I'll do it. And then, and I had so many of these weird sending scripts and coffees, and like it only took, eventually it takes one to break through, because that breakfast, 8 months later, I got an email being like, hi, I don't know if you're still looking for work, but we're looking for a development assistant here. And it was like, yes, I am. Please take me. And it happened to be like a big part of testing for the job was a coverage test, which I had been doing like nothing but. So it was like all these things finally fell into place. But I've like blocked out the hundreds of other awkward coffees I've had, because then when you look in retrospect, it was like, oh, it was like meant to be, but it's not finally, then working at DreamWorks, it was a lot easier to make connections and move to the next stage. But it was getting that like foot in the door. It's tricky.
Yeah, I think your point about like, if you play the movie backwards, it makes total sense, right? All these things somehow weave into the storyline, but at the time you have no idea how these things are gonna.
I mean, even working in animation, like people who've known me my whole life, old teachers were like, oh, it makes so much sense. But if somebody told me 10 years ago you're gonna be writing for cartoons, I would be like, oh, really? That's strange. Like, okay, cool. Like, it's funny how you can't predict.
You can't predict, and there's things about each job that are helpful no matter what you do. I mean, that's one of the things I've learned, because, I'm not working as an artist, but I'm working adjacent to artists. And you realize, though you can be sort of in the art world and do all sorts of other jobs, other tasks, other types of things. And so all these pieces somehow make you better, at what you do, no matter what. So yeah, I know there's a string of those sort of random jobs that, I think we all have. I guess I would say what I feel like was the most maybe meaningful sort of thing that really was able to set me off on the path, and how it happened was through an internship. And so, that is something that I think is always sort of an important thing in the field. But while I was in college at Stanford, I did a semester in the Stanford program in Washington, D.C. And in part of that, you were assigned an internship program. And at the time, they were like, well, where do you want to have your internship? And again, I grew up in Kansas City, Kansas. We were not a museum going family, and so the only museum I knew was the Smithsonian, right? I'm in DC. So I said, I want to work at the Smithsonian. And so they set me up with an internship at the Smithsonian while I was there for a semester. I worked in the traveling exhibitions department, deep in the basement of the, thing. I felt like a mole because I would go down into this underground office building that's under the mall. You wouldn't know it if you were there. But it was like, that was just an internship, but I worked hard. I mean, I guess my message is, no matter what it is, whatever job, you bring your personal best to it and you give it your all, because you don't know what it's going to lead to. And so like the boss that I worked with, she recognized that I was an intern who, was like really working hard and doing more than, some people might bring to an internship. And so then she had asked me to come back for the summer afterwards to work for her. So I went back that summer. And then afterwards, she asked me to come on after I graduated. So I was one of those people where I didn't really have to look for a job for graduation. It was because I had sort of done that internship. And even though I just, did that for another year after graduation, it's still, I think, it's like these opportunities, you get that foot in the door, and then it's kind of what you can make of it. And I do think, as much as like networking and mentor, all that sometimes is overused, at its best, it's if you approach it in a really authentic way, it's just about meeting other people who also care about the same things you do, so that, like you said, when they know you're looking for work, or they know that you are ready, they know of something that's opening up, they're like, that would be just perfect for Sarah, right? I'm gonna,
right,
those sorts of things. That is really how it happens. And so that's, that is my best sort of thinking about those early years. Again, it was those little, what seemed like a meaningless job, or just an entry internship can be made into something.
Definitely.
Great, thank you both. All right, so this next question I'm directing at Matt and Jessica, but if anybody else wants to answer, please jump in. So who are the people that you would identify as mentors in your professional life? How did you meet them, and how did you form a productive relationship?
It's such a wonderful question, because what's better than thinking about people who've like loved you and helped you out along the way. And so I definitely had the great honor of a few mentors and sponsors. I would say it's, a little bit different than mentorship, but people who've really helped me out. And, my first mentor was my photography teacher, David Prifty. I grew up in Concord, Massachusetts, and he always just encouraged me. And, we were talking about career earlier, and career is something that's super important to me. I just have always worked, I worked at a paper route. I worked at the library, the Concord Free Public Library, literally walking past first editions of Thoreau and Emerson and the Alcotts on my way to the break room. And then I also had a after-school job at a professional photo lab in town. So I was able to print my own portfolio in the professional photo lab. And I think when I contemplate my career trajectory, it's been super important for me to, understand like how my values align with the work that I'm doing. That's really, I think, part of the reason that I'm still working at Scholastic after quite a number of years. I think the opportunity to just be able to understand what your values are and then align them with your career and the relationships that you build I think has allowed me to, earn a lot of trust and even just liberty or freedom to do things like print my own pictures at the photo lab. And, I know I'm talking about career rather than just mentors, but mentors along the way have helped propel me. And, I think my tenure at Scholastic and in my role and how it's evolved has really been on two, now almost three occasions I've literally written a new job description, because as I look at the landscape of things, of the business operations and the creative process, I can't help it, but I start to see how we might take things apart and put them back together in a way that brings, some gain. And so being able to write my own job description has just like been a really fun experience. It's really hard. And I know in that process, I always kind of take a draft to someone that I know through my network. And, my network is, it's like we all have met people randomly on the street, through school, through family. But my first job in New York, I literally got it by looking in the phone book for photographers around the NYU area. And I would leave my name on a little Post-it with the doorman. And like someone called me back and I worked for him for a bunch of years, as an assistant, right? And so it's that, those relationships that you can really just honor and respect and through, through care and time, build the trust and then hopefully take it with you a little bit further. So yeah, I mean, mentors, very sadly though, it's like I've had a couple of mentors who've passed away and I always kind of feel that they're still in my heart, and I do think of them, regularly. And I just I think the importance of those relationships cannot be overstated.
I can't follow that. But I think just to build on that a little bit is listening. I think to me, I'm always surprised by who I look back on and think of as a mentor now, that maybe I didn't realize that when it was happening. And listening is really important as being an artist or a creative person in general, and taking criticism and working with that and not taking things so personally, which is really hard to do when you're very sensitive and so getting better and just allowing yourself to get better. Knowing that you're not the best. When I was younger, I really had a chip on my shoulder and just thought and I didn't keep any of that work. It's all gone. I don't hold on to that kind of stuff. Great artists, I find too, when I work with different people, is that they create so much that it ends up piling up. What they think is really important today, they don't think about in 3 weeks. That's why they paint over things. That's why they throw it away. That's why they give it away. I don't have anything that's older anymore, more than a year in my house. And you shouldn't. You should just keep creating, keep listening to people, keep taking advice. And if you don't like the advice, keep meeting new people. I like what you said, Jessica, about leaving your name on their door, because through school and post high school education, I think some of the best education I ever received was from working directly with artists. Was not from going to college, but was from taking a class at a gallery. And that's one piece of advice that I would give to anybody that's thinking about going to art school, is try taking a few classes at a gallery that's a fraction of the cost, dramatically. It's a few $100 compared to thousands and thousands, and get a feel for it and work with artists that you admire. I find that most artists out there are working also as teachers. So it's, take a class if you admire their work. Take a class with them and see if it's for you, and learn as much, absorb as much, listen as much as you can, and get better and better. You're never done. And like I said, the work that I'm making today that I'm really proud of, I'm going to hate in 3 weeks because I'm going to get better,
That's great. Yeah. Lisa, Sarah, do you have any mentor stories that you want to share? I know mentors can be so important in people's lives.
Well, I want to just, because we're with Scholastic Art Awards, I want to just tell a very special story about my high school art teacher, who, is the one who, put our work in front of the program, and worked so hard to get it in. And, again, I mean, I said, I was in high school, I graduated in 1988. So to give you some, my high school art teacher, she seemed old at the time, but she's still living because we're Facebook friends now. But what's so interesting is she was like a mentor, clearly. I mean, so much of my life is dedicated to this woman who, bought art supplies on her own, took us out on weekends to go like painting out in the city and these really amazing things. And she's now, since she retired, has gone back to painting and sort of as a working artist, and, is posting her work. At one point when because I'm an art museum director, she asked me to write a letter of recommendation for her for a fellowship that she was applying for. And I mean, it was like the most, I still feel goosebumps, like, how do I write a recommendation to the person who literally changed my life,
Sweet.
And so it was like this really interesting moment of kind of this mentor who, it kind of came full circle. And so, I think you really, and of course, I mean, teachers are, typically who we think of as mentors, but there are some of those people who really go above and beyond. So, and it's interesting because mentorships, what I found is they can strangely go both ways, even when you don't expect it, so that I wanted to share that, because just in thinking about preparing for this, it was really making me reflect back on, really what she did, and we appreciated it, but of course we didn't really appreciate it at the time because, we were in high school, and now just looking back, I just realized how much she gave of herself.
That's so sweet. Thank you for sharing that. What's her name?
Mrs. Bigham, but
Mrs.
Harriet Bigham. Yeah, I was going to tell her I was on this panel because I think she'd be so proud.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that. Great.
Yeah. I have a story that's not just making me think of, but sometimes it's not always mentors, but your peers who end up like becoming so much. Because I have a friend who we first met, we were like 24, and we formed like, I took a Gotham Writers Workshop class, and like 5 of us formed a writers group. We met every Tuesday at the Union Square Barnes and Nobles for like 2 years, which is like a lot of commitment for writers. Like, and I've known him now a long time. It's been a while since I was 25, and our careers, like, we never would have thought how much our careers have like kind of paralleled each other and come back. And like, now he's also working animation, but it's like great because we have this history of each other. We know each other's writing so well. We could give each other like the most honest feedback, and like that kind of relationship also is so valuable as you find your way creatively. Like your friends and the people who start the same place as you because they know you and your work better than like anybody else. So it's good to form those bonds. You never know who's gonna like be with you for the next 15 years or so,
Yeah,
That's true.
absolutely. Okay, so this question anyone can answer. How is your current role a product or an evolution of what you've experienced in your professional life? And how is your current role a bridge to your future career goals?
Well, since everybody's jumping right at once. So my story is kind of interesting because I went to school and I've always been an artist and creating. You can check out my work on my website, which is, oh my goodness, mattwyattart.com. So, leave in your comments how much you love or hate me. But when I got out of school, I sort of bounced around from different jobs, and I always made art in my own time, but never really expected to work in the arts. And a few of our friends from school, we were sitting around. It was my daughter's first birthday. By then she had gone to bed, and everything was cleaned up, and we were kind of hanging around as you do. And we got talking about all the art that was kind of piling up in our living rooms and our studios and what to do with it all, And then we started talking about the community that we were in and how there was really just such a void of fine art. And there was a small gallery, but they were, most of the galleries that were around then are now gone, sadly. So we were trying to think of a way that we could keep something going long term, because we had no money and we had no real connections or anything. We just had a lot of friends that were artists, because we had just gotten out of school. So we started looking at community buildings like our library and our community center, and realizing that there was really nothing in those buildings other than the programming. In the library, the books only go up to here, and then there's just nothing, above it. So just empty white walls and these beautiful buildings. So we started to collect art from friends, and then friends of friends, and then it started to get bigger and bigger. And we've never been paid. It's an all volunteer endeavor. And I call it a community art museum, although the art comes from all over the world at this point. And it's really just a way to make what I think are exceptional pieces of fine art accessible to all. And by doing that and marketing that and trying to get sponsorships and funding for that, and to get people to take us seriously, frankly, because a community art museum in a hallway at a community center, people laughed at us at first. They just kind of, didn't take us very seriously. But the better the work got and the more connections we made, the more artists we reached out to. We had a show with Eric Carle, the illustrator, at one point. We worked with Susan Kerr, who I actually have a piece from her. We have several pieces that she donated to us. She worked for Apple in the 80s and created all their typography and all their icons. And the more that we worked with great people like Wayne Wyatt, who has a great documentary called Beauty is Embarrassing, which I just love that title. He worked for Pee-wee's Playhouse and all these different things in the 80s and 90s. So check him out too if you don't know him. But the more we worked with people, the more it sort of legitimized what we were doing. And the more artists wanted to work with us. And it was sort of this like pop-up style movement. But we were in a community building that was open to the public. And eventually we were doing a short film night at our city's opera house, which is actually right above me now. And the manager was like, do you do marketing and you organize all this stuff? Why don't you come and work for us? So I quit my job at Apple at the time, and I started working in theater, and I knew nothing about theater, but I was just doing marketing and building websites and being creative. And eventually that led to a job at City Hall too. So now I'm even closer to the art, and I have a lot more influence too, which helps for sure. Get things done, get walls painted, floors ripped up, and all kinds of fun things. And so you just never really know where things are going to take you, and it's really important to just kind of let go and just follow it, because you, like Sarah was saying, you just don't know what connections you might make that are going to be really meaningful to you later in life. So it's a little bit about my story.
Thank you.
It's a long one. Is anybody still awake?
Yeah, no, we're still here.
It's great. Yeah.
I do think, definitely, just to re-emphasize that point of staying flexible. Like, I sort of joke that I was just trying to break in anywhere in terms of writing for screen, and like it's like banging your head against a wall, and then like I found the drywall was animation. That's what I was able to break through that wall. But for somebody else, it would be a different wall. And it's like, well, this is the room I'm going into next. Okay, like you can't be frozen by like maybe your vision of what you thought things were going to be, or like, because also the industry changes and things change, and the way art and writing is produced so you have to just like keep moving forward and being cool to people and just doing what draws you as much as possible.
One of the tools that I continue to use this day is I do what I call putting soft focus on things. And as a photographer, focus and your point of focus is super important, and also your frame. But when I put soft focus on things, it's a tool that I use to tune certain things out, because we've all faced adversity in life, whether it's a bully or, I don't know, in work, it's a colleague who just has like an agenda that doesn't align with yours. And putting soft focus on whatever that external stress might be has absolutely helped me just keep going forward. And I I still make art to this day, but one of the things that I do, because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm also a wife, and my wife and I have 2 daughters, 6 and 3. I'm working full time. So I'm like, oh, I'm still going to be making stuff, but they're just notes, just like visual notes, the pictures that I take, or the writing, because I also write and draw. And it's it's just like I'm at this point in my life right now where I'm like, oh, I'm not creating the masterpiece. Not that that was ever the goal, like that, frankly, it was just this sort of need to make something because that process. So those kind of strategies of just like putting soft focus on the external stress, but also even to some extent putting soft focus on what your product is. It's not like everything you do has to be the thing that you're going to do. It's just a matter of keep on doing that traction.
Yeah. Great. Just a reminder, if any of our audience members have questions, you can put them in the Q&A. We have a few coming in. All right, so another question for everyone. How has your experience as an artist or creative influenced the way you approach your career?
Well, I'll jump in here and kind of build on, I think, what Jessica was saying. I love that idea of soft focus, but the other thing I was thinking about is how art kind of infuses the way you approach things. It's just the sense that as an artist, I guess you can make things, right? And maybe it's to Matt saying what you're making tomorrow is better than what you made yesterday. And so I think this approach that an artist can bring is, I don't know, it's a little sense of confidence that, you know what, I can make something. I literally, with my hands or my mind, I can make new things, and there's something about that and an approach to a career that maybe puts you a little more in the point of agency, or a little more of like the protagonist in your story, or that that if you're not like just, even though it might feel that you're reactive at times, you can get into that active role and make something new and craft something different. And maybe it's your side gig while you keep the other thing going till the other comes. But I think that the approach to art, because you know that as you're making art, you usually don't have the exact end in mind. The process is the thing, right? And the tweaking and the modifying and looking and saying, oh, that's different than I thought. Okay, I'll go in that direction. Like that approach to art making, I think, can be applied to career and to life in that same thing. I mean, I think most of us are probably driven. And on the one hand, you're driven and you want, you have ambition and you want to do things. But I think what makes artists different is that their ambition is also with a very flexible, like, openness approach. And I think that comes from, again, I think a sense of confidence that, if I make something and it sucks, I can make something new tomorrow. You just kind of have this belief in your kind of generative ability.
I think I felt really guilty for a long time because when I started the art museum, I was so preoccupied with everyone else's art that my own really took a back seat, and I actually stopped creating for a long time. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with a friend, again, listening to people, and she said, well, you are still creating. Like, I'm a collage artist, so I'm always cutting things and putting things together and creating new things out of old things, stealing things to make new things and all kinds of things, so and one thing that she said to me was like, you're still making collages, you're just making them with other people's art. And what you're doing as a curator and building something, you're just making one really large public piece of art. And it made me feel so good because I felt so guilty not, having a stack of things on my own desk at home, but I didn't really think of it that way. So just changing my perspective and listening to somebody else and hearing how they see me. And it actually inspired me to make more art of my own too, because I wanted to keep contributing. And of course, working with other artists, you always want to get better because you see what they're doing. And it's like, oh my goodness, there's a million people out there that are making the same things that are way better than me. How do I get better too? What can I learn from them? How can I strike up a conversation with them and figure out how they're gluing things down, or how are they avoiding wrinkles when they glue, or, different things, that you pick up from other people.
That's great.
Sharing, one thing that I do is I absolutely read every day, and it's no, I mean, it's not a surprise that I work at Scholastic Publishers, but reading every day has absolutely helped me just be curious, stay curious about the world, and kind of unfold in, other stories, other perspectives, other ways of just thinking about things. And I know in my career, having written a couple of job descriptions, it's like I know the next role will be some iteration of that. Because even if I read a job description and Scholastic's like, well, that's cool, but we have something else in mind, like I know that this can be helpful in other places. And it's just a matter of, aligning things and obviously trying to, have a little bit of luck and, nurturing connections, but also just being really open to what that might be. But reading every day, I mean, it's like, you can't, even as artists, it's like you have to pay attention to that and pay attention and listen to the world around you, and all the diversity of representation that's there in the stories that we read.
Great. So we have a lot of questions coming in, and they're great. So I'm going to start. I'm going to jump over to those. So we have one question from Ren. How do you overcome the fear of failure? I know, it's a big one.
You never overcome it, right? You just have to go for it.
You watch it off. You just have to.
Yeah.
I use mantras. I definitely use mantras, like if there's something that I'm anticipating, and I don't like to talk about it as being nervous, because I feel like, it is probably nervousness, but it's what I need to get ready for that experience. And then I also literally use a technique where I put an egg timer on those thoughts in my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to think about that for just a couple minutes, and then I'm going to let it go. And I do visualizations. Like one thing that I've been doing, and I've been sharing it with my daughters, where I kind of imagine that like I'm holding a book open and a feather is landing on it. And I blow the feather away, and maybe it's a feather or leaves, they land into a little stream and just like go down the stream. So I mean, it's just like, it really does help. I mean, it helps me because
One thing that I've done to overcome failure is to fail in public many, many times. When everything you do is written about in your region, it's really, and you have to read about yourself. And we had a lot of stumbling blocks when we first started, and like I said, failed many times very publicly. We were very naive when we started. We knew nothing about anything, just art, so after you read about that a few times and see yourself in the paper or different things like that, or it just it actually makes me think about when we started the art museum. We started Pride for the first time in our small town. It's really easy to do it in New York and San Francisco and Boston, but in a small town, it's like you need it even more because people are so marginalized and feel so unseen. And we put up flags all over town, and we had permission to do this, of course. And there was this whole petition to take them down almost immediately. And they really chased us around about this. I had to disconnect my phone at work, and I considered it a failure in a way because I didn't know how to take that kind of criticism on a wide scale like that. I just wasn't prepared. And we thought really naively, oh, we'll start Pride in the city and we're gonna, we just didn't think at all. So learned a lot from that experience, and reading about myself and other people's opinions about me, including the nuns and all kinds of folks. Actually, we posted the video on our website, so you can check it out sometime at rochestermfa.org and
Wow.
check out the nuns and what they had to say about gay pride in Rochester, New Hampshire. But learning experience, you do it publicly, you learn really quick.
Absolutely.
I also just want to say, and this is something I struggle with, but it's better to have a first draft or a first go at something than nothing. Because it's sometimes the scariest thing is like, what if for me, I write this and it's, it's terrible, or it's like people are like, it's so derivative, or or just like, I don't know, it's just bad. But if it's in my head, it's nothing. It's like better to have, you can always improve or fix something. You have to just force yourself. Like I try to schedule my time to be like, you have to do this. I give myself deadlines. I kind of make friends, I be my accountability buddies almost. Like, I have to send you this thing by Sunday because I said I would. So then I just have to do it. It's it's hard. And also something I realized, I used to be so afraid of sharing my writing with people because I'm like, they gonna read it and hate me or something, you know, like if they don't like it. But then when people started sharing writing with me, I was like, I don't, even if I was like, I have criticism, I'm not like, I hate, you know, I never would feel like that to other people. So just, you know, everybody just, most people, I mean, the vast majority of the world is not, wants you to succeed and wants to help you and is not trying to like hate you. I guess it's like sometimes I remind myself that too.
Absolutely. All right, here's our next question. How important is it to do an internship in your field while a student? What do you think about internships? We've talked about, everyone's talked about it a little bit, but do you think they're important?
I mean, I wouldn't say they're essential. It's just a good way of making connections, you know, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're overly touted. Like sometimes there's big competition for like, oh, you got to get this internship, and it doesn't, you know, the reputation of internship doesn't matter so much as like the person you meet there who's gonna, you know, change your life in a different way. So like if you can't do an internship, you have to have a job. That's okay, you know. It's not. I think sometimes it becomes like a too much emphasis on like certain kind of prized internships type of thing.
Find the people you admire, you know, find the people you admire and talk to them. I didn't mean to cut you off, Lisa.
No, I was going to say that, and I was just going to, you know, say, I know I mentioned that I started my career in internship, but, you know, more and more I've been very down on just the way internships have been used in the field of arts and museums in particular. You know, we're really wrestling with it right now at the Obama Presidential Center because, you know, I'm like, I don't think we should be using interns or volunteers. I think people deserve to be paid. It's matters of equity. You know, when you look at the field, one of the things we're really trying to do is diversify the museum field, you know, particularly museum curators, you know, folks working in collections departments. It's one of the least diverse fields out there. And a big reason for that is because it's basically based on this pipeline of unpaid labor, and only that's not available to everyone. And so I think internships have their problems. And so while they, you know, what they do is provide a foot in the door and an opportunity to meet someone, and then you take it from there. And so I think, you know, overall, I would love to see the field move away from internships or make sure they're paid, you know, and paid at a livable wage, because otherwise I think the internship is just a way of perpetuating lack of diversity and lack of equity in the field. So that's my honest thought. And, you know, but you know, it's like we're trying to dismantle the system right now, and everybody's trying to work through it. And the challenge is that the whole museum and nonprofit world and a lot of the art world is based on unpaid labor, based on artists not getting paid for their work. Artists are often asked to donate artwork to support, you know, charitable causes. And so, I mean, I know, you know, this is a bigger topic. This could be a topic for a whole other panel. But I guess what I would say is, you know, if you can get an internship and it's able to work for you, it's a good opportunity for sure to meet someone. But getting a job or meeting through any other channel is equally valid and, you know, potentially even better.
Great.
Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
Oh no, I think that was fantastic. We just have a couple more minutes, so we'll just end on this one question. When did you start considering your work good? Did your Scholastic Award help you open your eyes to see your potential?
I still don't think I'm that good. No, you know what? I think it's good when I look at it and I think, wow, you know, like I'm really pleased with that. And then I put it out there and, you know, whether people like it or not, you know, I don't know if any of us know if we're really good or not. You know, you can get feedback all you want. You just have to keep creating and just keep getting better. And if there's something that you want to do, you just have to learn how to do it. And if there's something in your head that you don't know how to get out, you know, you have to find the ways to do that. But and it's only done through trial and error and making a lot of art. I made 1,000 bad paintings before I ever made a good one, you know, and I didn't keep any of them, you know, get rid of them, you know, just keep making them until you start to really dig what you're doing. It's very plain, but
yeah. Great. All right. I guess maybe we can squeeze in one more quickly. What advice do you have for aspiring visual artists/designers who want to collaborate with others rather than working independently, but are feeling slightly timid or shy?
Do it. Don't do it.
Just do it.
Who cares? Send them a message, leave a note on the door, do whatever you have to do. Get your work out there. Work with as many people as you possibly can, whatever that means. Do it. You only live once, and life is short, and it will pass you by, So keep making art.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. I wish we were all in person, and I'm sure if we were, we'd get some applause. But really, thank you to all of you for sharing your meaningful thoughts and insights and wisdom. Like, I found this conversation super inspiring, and I think that it probably resonated with everyone watching tonight. I see some applause and some thank yous from the audience, so thank you for that. So everyone, please stay connected with the Alliance. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm going to share in the chat a link to our Scholastic Awards alumni group on LinkedIn, which is actually a really great way to connect with other people and share opportunities. Yeah, so I'll share that now. But really, thank you to all of you, panelists and attendees. You are such an important part of the Scholastic Awards legacy, and we're really, really grateful to have you as part of it. So thank you and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.
All right.
Thank you,
Good night.
Scholastic.
And yes, the recording will be posted. Yes, thank you. Saw that. Okay, have a good night. Bye, everyone.
Bye.